In the morning, we were talking about Trump and our own rulers and so on. And so it is really from the ridiculous to the sublime that we have to talk now. Of the great mystics that we have had, as you know, in our tradition, it is not even the testimony of the book which is that important, or which is that conclusive, as the evidence of things experienced by our mystics. And that has evidentiary status. It is authenticity. The very fact that you have so many fakes shows that there is something intrinsically important that we recognize as genuine. And of the various mystics, the two who have not only fascinated me but really captured my mind and imagination have been Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans and Sri Raman Maharishi. As you know, Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans, most of his life was in the 19th century, and Sri Raman Maharishi lived right to the 1950s with this thing. They had, I'll introduce them to you and then just briefly mention the types of topics that this very thick book of 600 pages deals with. They had what I have described as mesmeric power, the power to mesmerize. And there are so many instances and examples. Can you hear me? Examples of this. As you know, Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans always yearned for youngsters whom he did not know. But he said he has seen them with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has seen them in visions with others. And when these boys started coming, he would recognize them. And among them was this young Narendra. He was not just an agnostic, he was almost an atheist, who was to later on become Swami Vivekananda. And he was very skeptical. And but Ramakrishna saw that he is the person I have been begging the mother for. And so there, you can go to his room in that Dakshineshwar temple outside Calcutta. So there is a cot there, and he would be sitting on the cot, and these youngsters would be sitting on the floor talking. And so they are arguing, and very often Ramakrishna would be in an abstracted mode. He's not quite there. So he looks and he said, they're arguing. He said, what are you arguing about? So nothing. So Narendra is the most emphatic. He had very strong will. So Ramakrishna just picks up his leg and puts it on his chest. And Narendra goes into a swoon. And immediately Ramakrishna removes it. On another occasion, Ramakrishna is going in a sort of abstracted way out of this room. And there's a veranda outside the room. So he's just crossing the veranda and these two boys are arguing. So he asks them, what are you arguing about? My God, something they say. He puts his hand, just touches Narendra's shoulder with his hand. And Narendra goes into a swoon. On another occasion, Narendra has now started coming to him quite often. He sings. Ramakrishna had a beautiful voice. And a bond has developed, though Narendra remains very skeptical. But a bond, and he recognizes week after week the great power that there is something very special in this man. So, Narendra's father dies. They were not a poor family, but they were just a family that could make do. But the death of the father throws everything out of gear. They now don't have food. And very often Narendra has to leave his house on the pretext that he is going to eat in a friend's house. But actually he has nowhere to eat. But he wants the little food there is to be given to his siblings. So that is his condition. And the mother is suffering, the siblings are suffering. It is terrible. So he is always imploring Ramakrishna, you please, why don't you ask mother? She always listens to you. She comes to you when you ask her. Why don't you ask her, please, something, let me get a job. And he is going from place to place, seeking a job. He can't find a job. So he asks her, but please implore her for my sake, for my mother's sake, to give us something. So Ramakrishna says, you know I can't ask the mother for that. But he insists. So he said, today is Tuesday. See, it's a very auspicious day for the mother. You go and ask her. She will give it to you. Today is a special day, she will always give it. So Narendra goes, and he goes there, and he has a vision before the statue, and he is transported, and he sees an effulgence, and he comes back. And it describes to Ramakrishna, this is what happened. He said, did you ask the mother for what you went? Wait, God, I forgot. So what should I do now? Go back. So he goes. Same sort of thing happens. So he comes back. So Ramakrishna said, did you ask her? So what should I do? He said, go back. So third time this happens. Then Narendra realizes that no, it is Ramakrishna who is preventing me from doing it. It is his Leela. Because Ramakrishna says, you are not meant for this. He said, but then okay, it's not the mother, you please say, bless me. So he says, all right, your family will always have enough to eat. That was all. So this power is displayed again and again. In the end, as you know, Sri Ramakrishna gets cancer. In those days, 19th century, it is a very painful cancer. There is no pain relief or reliever also. And he is transported first to, so the Dakshineshwar is a bit far, so the doctor can't come there very often, so they transport him nearby in a house. From there he is shifted to a larger estate of about 5 acres that the boys take on rent and some devotees pay for it. And Ramakrishna is there. Now it is the last few days. So similar incidents have happened again and again. So Narendra tells, there is a room upstairs on the first floor where there is a bed on which Ramakrishna is now lying. He is almost half there, half not there. So Vivekananda says to him, Narendra says to him, that experience, once that experience. He said, no, you have come here for another thing, for another task. I have begged the mother for you here for another task. You get used to that experience. So Vivekananda says, no, but what will I do? You will be going soon. Ramakrishna said, the fellow dares to say that? Anyhow, he said, no, get out. So a day or two passes and Vivekananda this is downstairs on the ground floor where the boys used to sit and meditate. And Sri Sharda Devi used to cook in a kitchen outside, in an outhouse. So Vivekananda, Narendra starts shouting. He's meditating and there's an older person sitting there. Where is my head? I can see my body, but where is my head? So he starts shouting. And this older person said, no, but your head is on your body. What is the problem? He can't find it. He can't find it. So this other, and then he just falls and becomes like a log of wood. And this fellow shouts for the other sort of companion youngsters. कहते भाई इधर आओ पता नहीं ये मर गया क्या हो गया. They try to He came, prod him, hit him. Inert. So what to do? They run to Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna, who is not alert, it is as if he is seeing everything that is happening. And they ask him, "This is happening. Is he dead? What's happening? Please do something." He said, no, don't worry. He has troubled me enough. He wanted this, so let him have it once. So after a while, Narendra comes back to awareness and he comes to Ramakrishna. He says, "I have shown you everything now, but I am keeping the key. Only when you have done your task will you have the experience again." And so they were this kind of power. In the same way, in Sri Raman Maharishi's case, there are so many stories. People will go. They are, of course, two very different persons. Sri Ramakrishna is like, I have described him as like quicksilver. And you are trying to gather him up in a sieve. छाननी में आप उनको gather कर रहे हो, आते नहीं हैं. Raman Maharishi is like a placid, deep forest pool. No disturbance. And he always sitting in a hall, reclining. But the same effect. People go to him with all sorts of complicated questions. And they are in his presence. Somerset Maugham, he goes there. He has so many questions. So as he enters, they say, no, you, Raman Maharshi indicates the gentleman, Englishman called Major Chadwick, who had settled on that hill, Arunachal Hill. So he says, I'll meet you there. So he goes there. And they sit. And Raman Maharshi looks at him. And he keeps looking at him. So 10 minutes pass, 15 minutes pass. And Chadwick tells Somerset, now you asked the questions, you had so many questions, ask him. You won't get the opportunity again. But Mom remains quiet. He says, yeah. So 1 hour passes. Raman Maharishi gets up and says, heart-to-heart talk is the best talk. And so Chadwick asks Somerset, Mommy, why did you not ask? You had so many questions. So Mom says, but it seems so obvious. So much of this. I remember there's a person called Sri Madhav Ashish. Many of you might have heard of him from the Mirtola ashram. As you know, there was an Englishman called Sri Krishna Prem, whose commentary on the Gita or the Kathopanishad you would have read. Wonderful man. He settled in Mirtola ashram near Almora. So Madhav Ashish sort of in a sense became his successor, though not with those spiritual, that kind of attainments. But I once met Madhav Ashish. And he then came to tell me about, somehow the conversation went to Raman Maharishi. And I asked, so he described how he chanced upon the hill and met and gone to the hall. So he says that, he told me that, I said, so what happened? He said, I don't know what happened. I was sitting and I don't know what happened. I don't know how much time passed. But when I came to, I noticed that everybody was looking at me. So I asked my neighbor, hey, why are you looking at me? So he said, because he was looking at you. So what was happening to you? So Madhav Ashish told me that, see, there was a window in front and I was looking out of the window and all sorts of technical things started happening there. And in his view, Raman Maharishi had just shown him a trailer. And he gave up everything and went to Almora and settled down in the Mirtola ashram. So such was their power. And we have it on Raman Maharishi's own statement that whenever anybody in Gandhiji's circle was in distress, Gandhiji will send him to Raman Maharishi. Go and spend some time there. And when Gandhiji's journals or writings, a copy came to the ashram by post or something, that day the copy will be read to the whole hall from from the title to the printer's line. Such was the regard for each other. Now, I was very, perplexed by one thing. That Gandhiji had such great regard for Raman Maharishi. Why did he not meet him? And this doubt was reinforced in my mind because of an observation in a diary by a man called Mudaliar, a devotee and quite a literate man, in which somebody says to Raman Maharishi, "Sir, I am going to Madras. I bought a 6-anna ticket or 6-anna ticket to go by train because Mahatma is coming there. I am going to bring him here." So Raman Maharishi says, no, he won't come. No, why will he not come? He'll come. Once he came down there, only 3 kilometers from the ashram, for a cattle fair, and the fair was over before the time, but he did not have the time to come up here. Now this was a very uncharacteristic remark of Raman Maharshi, because he would be unperturbed by anything. So was it disappointment? Was it censure? Why did he not meet? So I once asked Gandhiji's grandson, Ramchandra Gandhi, this our Rajmohan's brother, why did it? So Ramchandra, who was a philosopher, he said, no, you see, Raman Maharshi was a Shaivite and Gandhiji's followers were Vaishnavites, and Gandhiji did not want to upset his followers. I think Gandhiji upset everybody. What is the point about his followers? So I was in Madras, and through a friend of mine, who's a man called S. Guhan, a well-known civil servant, it turned out that Professor K. Swaminathan, who edited Gandhiji's collected works, 100 volumes, and who also wrote a biography of Raman Maharishi, was he was Guhan's uncle. So I must go and see him. I want to ask him this. So we were talking, Professor Swaminathan was quite an elderly gentleman by that time. So we were talking, and I then asked him, "Sir, why did Gandhiji not meet Raman Maharishi?" And Professor Swaminathan froze. And then his tears came down his eyes. I looked at Guhan there as if, what have I done? Have I said something, to hurt him? So I said, "Sir, I'm so sorry if I have offended you in any way." He said, No, young man, you have pierced my heart. You see, it was my ambition to get them to meet. I was a follower of the Mahatma, and I was a devotee of the Maharishi. I made so many plans to get them together. But there was somebody cleverer than all of us who will always derail the plan. Gandhiji, it will be included in the program, but something would be done and program will be changed. Hey, really? Who could be cleverer than Gandhiji? He said, "Rajaji." Why? Why would Raja? He said, because Rajaji knew that if the Mahatma goes there, up the hill, he will never come down. And we need him for the freedom struggle. So these were such fascinating people at that time. And there is a relay race in India at that time. You see, Ramakrishna discovers Vivekananda. Then Lokmanya Tilak arises. At the same time, Shri Aurobindo in Calcutta. Then Lokmanya Tilak dies in 1920. Gandhiji takes over the Congress in 1921. Raman Maharishi has come into his own. And by the early 1950s, all that is gone. Vivekananda, of course, has died much earlier. Tilak has died. Gandhiji is shot. Raman Maharishi dies. Shri Aurobindo dies, and the whole chapter is closed. So these were such fascinating people that I then started learning about them. So I had been reading, and there were these two figures. So the question came to me, so what would the neuroscientists of today say if they chanced upon these two mystics? Because their word cannot be doubted. They are not क्या नाम है, Asaram or any of these fakes. Their word is authentic, their experience is authentic, so what can we say? I soon realized that actually the neuroscientists are modest enough and say, we cannot say anything about the mystic experience per se. And every mystic has also said, you can't say much, we can't tell you. He who says does not know, he who knows does not say. Gurbani mein bhi hai, Kabir ka bhi hai, Are ka. Ramakrishna also says, when he is asked, everybody asks him, sir, what do you feel? Because Ramakrishna ka to ye tha, Raman Maharishi there is almost no account of his going into a trance. He is always just calm. So it is interpreted that he is always in that condition. In Ramakrishna's case, anything can set him off. He hears a song, he hears a mention of Radha, of Krishna, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of anything. He sees two prostitutes, he sees two drunkards, he goes into a swoon. So, Ramakrishna is therefore always asking, what is that? What do you feel when you are there? He says, I'll tell you. Once a salt doll, a doll made of salt, decides to find out how deep is the ocean. So she dives into the ocean. But she gets dissolved. So we never know the depth of the ocean. So after 2 years of study, I realized that I cannot learn anything from current neuroscience about the mystic experience. Maybe a part is ignited of the brain, maybe networks are in, because actually speaking, it's now well established, there are networks which are lit up, in a sense, activated when any experience happens, not one point only. So then I focused on the peripheral experiences that were described. For instance, their visions, as was just now said. Ramakrishna is always having visions. Raman Maharishi also describes some visions. Others have visions of them after death, before death, at the time of their own death. There are experiences of bilocation. Somebody sees, you are sitting here, but I saw you in Dhaka. But Ramakrishna has never left his room. Raman Maharishi himself says, no, my body ascended and I saw that village. And when it is asked of him later on about that village, they find out it is exactly as he described it. There is a Ganesh temple here, there is that there, this is how the layout is there. So nobody knows, he's never been there. So such thing. So these were peripheral experiences. And I started finding out the neurological basis for those peripheral experiences. And the assumption and the premise of the book is, before coming to a supernatural explanation, we should study how far can natural explanations take us in describing or accounting for those particular experiences. And the book follows two methods for this. One is that if there is a neurological study, a neuroscientific study, which directly describes that or creates that particular type of experience, that is, the concordance is shown. And the other is, when does that kind of experience occur in other circumstances? So that is what the book is about. Now, sir, how much time? 10 minutes. So many of these experiences are taken up. We have only 10 minutes, so I'll describe. For instance, the extreme austerities to. So without the QA, then how long? 20. Okay. Sir, यहाँ rationing बहुत strict है. तो बात ये है. For instance, they went through extreme austerities, things which we cannot imagine. In Sri Raman's case, this lasted 3.5 years. He was completely insensible. He would not eat, he would not defecate, he would not sleep. He did not know. He goes into a deep meditation here and he finds himself sitting under the tree because people have lifted him from here. Because youngsters are coming and throwing stones and fruit and garbage and cow dung on him. He doesn't realize. He is once in the basement, he takes shelter in a basement of a temple And there the boys hit him, there rats and all eat up his flesh. He is full of sores and pus. He doesn't know. This period lasted 3.5 years. In Ramakrishna's case, it lasted 12 years. Now it is well established that what happens to our body immediately affects the mind. Over a prolonged period, it changes the synaptic connections or connections between points in the brain or vessels in the brain, and thereby alters our attitudes. You can see this every day. When you have a toothache, your perception of the world changes. The same thing about the mind affects the body. People have cured themselves, or every doctor says, no, your confidence is very important, you must have confidence in the cure. Hypnosis is a perfect example. Placebo is a perfect example of the mind affecting the body. We don't know in India, but hypnosis is now standard procedure in operations instead of anesthesia. So, now I'll give you just one example. Ramakrishna says that in the 12 years of his sadhana, for 6 years I did not sleep a wink. He said, I did not sleep. I used to go, I thought I was going mad. And I used to go to the mirror and try to shut my eyes. I could not shut my eyes. That was my condition. Now, when I asked the neuroscientist this, they said, no, completely, ho hi nahi sakta. He would have died on the second month. There are many instances of that. As you know, in torture, depriving people of sleep is one of the easiest forms of torture. He will break down. So, what happened? You can say either fibbing, but there are neurological explanations for this. For instance, some species like birds that fly from the Arctic to South America, they don't, how do they go for all that time without sleep? They are flying, there is no place to rest in the ocean. So there are species which can shut off parts of the brain, put them to sleep, and the other half continues. Even a hemisphere can be put to sleep and the other half continues to work. So one eye, I put the left hemisphere to sleep, so my right eye will not function, but the left eye continues to function, and so on. That could be one explanation. Others said, oh, it could be Yog Nidra. But if it was Yog Nidra, then that in a very short period you can get all the rejuvenation that you want. But then why was Ramakrishna so frantic if it was that placid an experience? And so on. In the case of visions, for instance, Ramakrishna would always be having visions. But the clue that I found was that he will always have the vision he yearned for. He wants to have the vision of Shri Krishna. But as Radha saw him, so first he meditates on Krishna, he can't get the vision. So idea comes to him that no, I must get Radha's consent. So now he becomes Radha. But when he becomes Radha, he will wear a woman's clothes. He will wear her jewelry. His gait will change. So much so that those who knew him could not recognize him. He wants the vision of Sri Hanuman. His gait changes. He can't walk. He jumps. He starts living in a tree. He can't eat cooked food. He says that my tailbone at that period grew by 1 inch. He wants the vision of the prophet. In 3 days he gets it. He wants the vision of Jesus. He gets it. He wants Ram as a child. He gets that. So what was this? It was auto-suggestion. It was intense longing, because he always says that longing is the sine qua non of the spiritual experience. A disciple asks himself, what should I do? What is the one thing I should do to get this? To get these experiences? He says, I'll tell you. You see, a Shishya once asked the Guru, what should I do? So he said, I'll take you. He took him to a lake. Try to drink water. He said, drink water. So the Guru presses the head in and keeps it down. Now the disciple is shaking. He is panting for breath. But the Guru holds him down. And then he releases him and the person comes up and he said, what did you feel? He said, I felt I was going to die without breath. He says, when you feel that you are going to die without God, God will appear. Now, this was the intense degree of longing. But when you have such intense longing, are you actually not doing a sort of self-hypnosis? So there are neurological studies on this, and on the question of the consequences of total immersion, which is the phrase in Buddhist meditation techniques. I'll give you two, three such examples, and then I'll finish. For instance, Ramakrishna says that when I used to sit in sadhana for meditation, a young person looking just like me would come out of my body and sit in front of me and instruct me in every form, at every step. And when, after the 6-7 hours have gone, he will go back into my body till next day. Now, this is actually a very well documented phenomenon among explorers and mountaineers. Sir Eric Shackleton, who went to the South Pole, as you know, their ship was crushed by the freezing of the ice. They were marooned. They could not go. It was 100 miles away, the nearest place from which rescue could come. So in the end, they have no way. Shackleton and 2 other companions go and trudge in a most treacherous journey, in which there are blizzards, in which there are crevices, all sorts of things happen. And in the end, they think they will be on an ice floe, which is floating, and that will carry them there. That damn thing sinks. It is the greatest travail that they reach the spot from which they bring a rescue. Their party is rescued. When Shackleton writes about this, he calls the other 2. He calls one of them. He says, I'll tell you one thing. Did you feel also that there was if somebody else guiding us? They said, sir, yes, but we didn't say that, because people will think we have gone mad. So Shackleton asked the 3rd person. He said, yes, sir, there was a person. Then Shackleton writes that he was convinced it was Jesus who had guided them throughout this period. Now, Hermann Buhl, one of the greatest mountaineers of the 20th century, in climbing Nanga Parvat, he found this Smith on climbing the Everest. Their experiences were so. If we had time, I would describe to you. The book describes what the enormously dangerous experience it was in that period. And then they would feel that they were being guided. And a person called Reinhold Messner, an Italian, who is regarded as the greatest climber ever, who always climbed Everest, K2, everything without oxygen, the greatest mountains of the world, and he always did it alone. And he could summon this, it is known as the 3rd man, he could summon him at will to guide. Don't put your foot there, put it here. So what is the neurological explanation for this? They are not, so it is sensory deprivation, it is isolation, it is the fear of death, which then leads me to a condition in which my accumulated experience is impersonated in another person who then guides me. And the moment Buhl sees the base camp, he looks, the person is not there. But before that, the person was so real that in the end he has lost his jacket, he's lost his crampons, he has lost his stick. He is in that desperate a condition. He finds in his jacket, in some pocket, that there are 2 biscuits left, somehow. So real is the experience that he takes out 1 biscuit and tries to give it to him, but there's nobody. So, was it the same that it was Ramakrishna's own experience which was embodied in this way? In the same thing about this flying higher, looking out, this is the well-known outer body experience. Now, the interesting neurological point here is that various persons, the pioneer in this was a great neurosurgeon, one of the greatest, called Wilder Penfield. You see, when you do a brain operation, for instance, in epilepsy, when the epilepsy is intractable, it does not respond to any other treatment, then you have to cut away some connections. You find out where is the locus of that, from where does it originate, that epileptic fit, and you cauterize it, or you burn it, or you cut away the connections of this part with other parts, so that that epileptic fit does not spread to other parts. So Penfield carried out more than 1,300 such operations. But to find, when you cut the skull, you open the skull, now you have to locate where I should go, what to cut. So what is done, what he would do would be to take an electrode and put a charge to find out where does the person respond, where does the fit start. But he found that all sorts of experiences and memories would come back. He would put this, and the person will start saying, but Ajay, when we were talking last time, you said Ajay is not there. Somebody is in Johannesburg. All sorts of experiences, including in my recounting and the description. And Penfield would keep dictating what the person is saying, and there would be stenographers taking it down. So we have a complete record of what happened in different parts, when different points were stimulated. And many of these things were exactly all the religious experiences. Many of them were indistinguishable from a mystic experience. If I told you that patient G.A., whom he describes, had this or out-of-body experiences, the person says, I'm floating, I'm looking down, etc. So was it that our sages had learned to somehow inadvertently stimulate that particular point, and then they had this experience? So there are many such things, including seizures. I mentioned, just with your permission, just one very interesting thing. See, Ramakrishna is eating. This is a frequent occurrence. He is eating, and the hand freezes. He can't. He was very fond of these puris and fish and goat curry. He can't take it, hand freezes, and then he's talking, and suddenly he becomes abstracted and he loses, and then he starts. Or he's coming down the stairs, and suddenly, then he starts. Now, if you see, this is well known in neurology as an absence seizure. There is a certain thing called an absence seizure with mild clonic movements, in which a person is doing something and suddenly he loses control over his hands, and things that he's holding fall through his hands. Now that's exactly a description of when Ramakrishna tries to do tarpan for his beloved mother who has passed away. He can't do it, and in the end he holds the pitcher of water and it falls through his hand and all the water goes. And then with great remorse he begs of the mother, I can't do it. But this is exactly the description of a absence seizure with this called with mild clonic components. So there are many such things, and we don't have time. There are ecstatic seizures, and in neurology most of the people have been most of the persons, including the prophet and all, they have been written off as persons who had temporal lobes here, temporal lobe epilepsy, and that is what caused those experiences. All mystics are the neurology. That's the standard explanation. I feel there are more complicated explanations, but the book deals with many such experiences, with many such things. It deals also with other concepts, like Raman Maharshi will always say that the soul rests in the heart. The heart is on the right side, not on the left side. So people say, but the heart is on the left. Arey Bhabhi, you can look up any autopsy. No, the heart I mean is on the right. And that he also says that no, I had to give a specific location for the self. He always talks of the self in many ways, including cosmic consciousness. That when I say the self, people think it is in their body. So where in the body I have to tell them something, so that to give them a way to where to concentrate, I say it is on the right side, a cavity on the right side. So also he says everything is just the mind, creation of the mind. There is no world, there is no war, there are no thoughts. It's all a creation of the mind. But actually, if it's all unreal, he says everything is unreal. Then why are you eating? Why are you writing poems to a hill that does not exist, poems that do not exist? A guru who does not exist writes those. Why? So again I found that he said that I have to say these things for those who are attached to the world. So I have to keep telling them, no. See, the world is unreal. When they start believing it is unreal, they will start looking where they should look. So was it for didactic purposes? I found one final example and I'll then finish. For instance, in 2 instances, Raman Maharishi is said to have what all these devotees write about as 2 death experiences. He is in his uncle's house at the on a first floor room. He's alone, and he suddenly has the thought that I am dying. I have died, and he lies down. He stiffens himself like a corpse, and he feels that no, but see, that body is dead, but you are alive. And this convinces him that he is not the body. And he says that this was a conclusive experience. After that, he just leaves his house and so on. That's the whole story. The same thing happens. They have gone down to a pool to bathe, 3 of them, he and 2 companions. They are living in a cave. It is 10 o'clock. It is very hot. They've had an oil bath. And he comes, and there's a thing, the hill, there is a thing called the tortoise rock, on which he starts feeling dizzy. And the landscape blurs. And he feels he will fall. When this happens a second time, he sits down. He says that his heart stopped beating. His breathing stopped. All the skin became completely blue. He's completely lucid. And then with a great force from the right side of his heart, a great force comes and he resumes consciousness and says, okay, let's go. This is also written up as a death experience. Now, these near-death experiences have been documented so often. So the question is, what is their explanation? And the neurological explanation is that this is the normal unspooling of the brain. For instance, to give you, there is a tunnel. People say that you see a tunnel at the end of which there is a light, etc. But a lady called Susan Blackmore, she had this hypothesis many years ago in a book called Dying to Live, that it is actually the way the visual field in the brain is organized. The maximum number of cells are in the central part. The peripheral parts have fewer cells. So in the random excitation of the cells, you will see a light in the center and darkness going around. That you see as a tunnel. So there are many such explanations for elements of the near-death experience. So the point is, that's what the book deals with. And it concludes by saying that it is the great miracle of their lives was their goodness, their compassion, and the great influence they had on the secular life of our country. If you see Max Muller's letters, they are so confident that India is being Christianized. Through what? Through Brahmo Samaj. Who is the leader of Brahmo Samaj? Keshav Chandra Sen. So Max Muller writes that we have found the person who will carry Jesus' method and convert India. And what happened? Keshav Chandra सबकी हजामत कर रहा है और रामकृष्ण उसकी हजामत कर देते हैं. He falls under Ramakrishna's spell and becomes a devotee. Similarly, as I told you about Raman Maharishi's influence on Gandhiji and on others participating in the movement, so it was that influence, the real miracle was their lives. And we should honor and revere that life, that pristine example. So when other traders in our religion, who use our religion for commerce and other things, when they do it. They are using our religion for, and thereby debasing it, and it is our duty to expose them and to hold up the real examples of Raman Maharishi, Ramakrishna Paramhans, and all these great mystics. The book will be out in 2 months. Thank you so much.
Actually, my question is more on just connecting it to some of the modern technology, what we call artificial intelligence today, whether it's IBM's Watson or DeepMind by Google. There is so much of research happening on artificial intelligence, which is actually digging deep into the cognitive powers. Do you see any sort of a comparison? Do you see any connection to some of the research you have done, sir, and what is coming up in some of the new technology now?
Ramchandran, V.S. Ramchandran has written wonderful things about the explanations in the brain, the processes of the brain. Oliver Sacks, of course, wrote a lot, including on near mystic experiences. But the technologies are actually, they are creating those experiences through technology. There's a man in Canada called Michael Persinger. He says about the sensed presence, this third man, that 80% of he's devised a helmet through called the Coron helmet, in which magnetic fields are created, and that helmet is put on me and I have the religious experiences. And he claims that 80% of the persons who sat under the helmet sensed a presence in the room. So that is a question to be pondered by us, that if technology tomorrow is able to recreate such religious experiences, then what will happen to our understanding of those experiences, and therefore to the significance which we attach and the evidence which we read into the reports of our mystics. We should examine this. But we don't. We shut our eyes. Doing that is to profane a divine experiences. I was scolded by a great authority in the Ramakrishna Mission. Don't you do that? Profaning a divine experience. But if in 50 years that thing can be done, then what will happen to Ramakrishna's evidence? So the example we should follow is of the Dalai Lama. He helped set up a thing called the Mind Life Institute, in which Tibetan masters of meditation who have done 50,000 hours of meditation, 14 years in an isolated cave, they are made available to neuroscientists to study what happens inside the brain when they go into those states. So we are so defensive. Dalai Lama says you should, we were listening to a discourse of his, and what happens is that one person will keep reading a scripture, Tibetan scripture, and Dalai Lama will then give a little commentary on it. So something was said about the cosmos. So Dalai Lama said, "Oh, Buddhist doctrines of the cosmos, such an embarrassment." You see, Buddhism must face facts. If new facts come to light, we must discard it. So always have a waste paper basket near you. Throw the discarded notion. That is confidence in your tradition. Not the idea that, don't examine this, you are profaning a divine experience. So you are absolutely right. Those technologies are on the anvil, they are around the corner. We should anticipate the effects they will have, and we should see what it means for our tradition. And this is a question on which Indians should work. We are the repositories of this experience. So why don't we work on it? We are only studying books written abroad. For my own work, you were saying that I read Ramchandran. My footnotes, I was embarrassed to see that my just citations run into 61 pages in small type. But all of them are from the West, because we are not doing this work.
Thank you very much, sir.